Hello, I am Encineri Constantine. Please allow me to introduce myself. This is my story, and it is one that is strange, but it happened. I call it the beginning. In the beginning, I was in a black void, and I was starting to become more aware of myself. I didn't know what I was just yet, but I would become more aware of myself. So I'm looking at myself and realize that I'm a spirit or a soul, and I'm in this place that's a black void. I'm looking around and all I see is eternal darkness. It just stretched on and on, no matter which direction I looked. There was no sense of time, or sickness, or death in this place. You are simply just raw being, a spirit. You have no religion, no identity, just pure spirit. And so I would look around at my hands, if you can call it that, my arms, and I was like this glowing, dull glowing spirit being. As I became more aware, or consciously aware of my being, I'm looking around in this dark place, the void, the nothing. And as I'm doing this, from the corner of my eye, I see a shining bright white light, and it's getting closer. It's just coming right out of the darkness. And a voice told me, or called out to me, do not look my way. You cannot look at me just yet. And it's the shining being, the shining one as I call it, approaching me from the corner of my eye. Now this shining one, I cannot describe the voice other than to say that the voice was that of a male and female. It's hard to explain that. So I was able to eventually turn to look at the shining one, and even in my spirit form, this shining being was so bright that I would kind of like bring my spiritual form or hands up to my eyes, and then eventually I didn't have to do that. Well, this shining one started talking with me, telling me about things. I was told about a former life that I had lived, and it is one that wasn't quite pleasant. So excuse me for not talking about it, because I don't know if it's true or not. I'll explain later my feelings about this shining one and the other being that I met before coming into this world. So the shining one told me that I can choose my parents. And yet it seemed like I really didn't get to choose my parents. I also had questions because I'm more consciously aware now that my spirit, my soul is mindfully awake. So I wanted to ask questions, but the spirit being said I was going to be going into the world. I forgot the name that she had, this shining one had for the earth. So I'll just let that be. Well, the Shining One told me I would be going into the world and that my purpose in life would be to help others and to save people. But at the same time, I would live a life of suffering, which I didn't understand why that would be. Why do I have to suffer? Yet knowingly go into the world knowing that's what my supposed fate, my destiny is going to be. And let alone who are these people that the Shining One's talking about. It was at this moment that the Shining One pointed to an area in this black void. And I looked over, and a pin dot prick, it started out just from a pin dot of light appeared, but expanded outwards into a perfect circle. The rim was glowing white light, and I was told to go up to it and look. And so I did. I could see the stars and the earth. It was beautiful. And the Shining One came up to me and pointed at the earth and told me that's where people live. That would be going into the world to help people out and live this life of suffering. Yet I did not want to go. I kind of tried to inform the Shining One that I didn't want to go. I was like, hey, do I have to go? I felt forced to incarnate or to come into the world of material matter. I didn't want to go. I was told about some terrible things, but that would be in this world to help people out and stuff and live a life of suffering, in which I did and somewhat still continue to do. So the Shining One, after telling me all this, started to leave, but I didn't have my questions answered. But the Shining One had left, which I thought was rude. Wasn't very helpful at all. So I stood there looking into this portal or circle of light. I'm looking at the stars and the earth. I'm just standing there. Now, like I said, there's no time in this black void. So for however long I was standing there looking at the earth, it could have been an easy 100 years have already passed by in the material world of the earth and stars. So I could have been standing there for what seemed just like a few minutes in the black void. Could have been 100 years gone by easily on earth. But I decided to lean out. I leaned into the circle and I looked up and outwards to see what was on the other side of this circle of light. And I'm seeing nothing but stars all around the circle. It was really strange. That's why I call it a portal. Perhaps a doorway of interdimensional qualities. So I leaned back inside and I started walking away from this portal because I was like thinking, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to enter it and go into the world. That's when I had turned around to start walking away. I seen the other being. It was a reptilian man. Arms, legs, upper chest, feet, hands, head. Very muscular, but his body was covered in scales. It was like reptile. Reptilian man. And he was scary looking, so I dropped down and I was fearful. So I dropped down in fear. I cowered down. but the being just stood there. So I rose back up to where I was standing. I don't remember if the being ever said anything, but he just stood there and stared. He had a blackish, somewhat gray scales covering his entire body. So I turned back to look at the portal, thinking I had no choice but to enter. There it was, the earth and stars. I looked back and the being was gone. That reptilian man was nowhere to be seen, and it was nothing but black void. Just nothing. So looking back into the portal at the world of material matter, I notice when I'm close to the portal that I was starting to experience emotions and more thoughts. Whereas when I first became aware of my spirit being, I didn't have any of that. So there's something about the material world where we have emotions and the capabilities to think, to have intelligence. And yet I didn't want to go down there into the earth. Like I said, I felt like I was being forced to. The decision was already made for me, and yet it was almost as if I was being told I had free will to think for myself. My life already planned and laid out for me. So I went through it. And now I find myself floating amongst the stars. Just floating. A spirit just floating among the stars. And now I'm like, now what? What am I to do? What's going to happen? So, as I started thinking that, suddenly I feel myself being pulled towards the earth. Now, is there some kind of weird connection with gravity and being a spirit, a ghost, a soul? All I know is I started being pulled more towards the earth. Before I knew it, the stars started flashing past me, forming into a tunnel. Now I felt like I was a shooting star, but heading towards the earth. As I get closer, the stars were just flashing past me so fast it formed like white lines or streaks, but yet in a tunnel. Before I knew it, everything went black.
This guy had a pre-birth memory before he came to Earth. That's mainly what I'm focusing on and what transpired afterwards. First, he found himself in the blackness of the void, discovering himself. Then he was confronted by a being that he called the Shining One. Now, this is common in near-death experiences where a person will see an angelic-like being of light, and usually what follows is love and light and bliss and comfort and all that other stuff. All those feelings of unconditional love are used to manipulate the soul. Also, they'll use something that you did in your life or a past life as a reason why you have to go back to Earth. That's exactly what happens to this guy in the video during his encounter with what he calls the Shining One. Then he encounters the reptilian. And after seeing the reptilian, he basically admits to feeling afraid and feeling fear and acknowledging that this reptilian being looked really scary. And so basically that was manipulation right there. First, he's manipulated by the Shining One, aka the light being, about what he did before in a past life. Then he's made to feel fear by this reptilian being. Once the fear had overtaken him, he ultimately felt he had no choice but to incarnate on Earth. In the end, he fell prey to the Reincarnation Soul Trap and became just another inmate on prison planet Earth. It's good to know that this is happening because then you can think what you want to do about it. You can't fix what you don't know.